And we'll call the meeting to order. Do we have anyone here for public comment?
Nobody on public comment?
Right, next is approval of the February minutes. Okay.
Vote. Aye.
Do we have our junior board member?
That is not here for her. No.
And we still don't have a school board liaison.
Yeah, I guess they're still figuring that out with the new advisory boards that we're having, so I'm not too sure what the move is on that, so.
Do we have a commissioner?
Commissioner is flying back, I think either flying to or flying back from somewhere. He's unavailable, but just to note some commission business. We obviously the boards will take the new advisory boards will take effect April 1st. The resiliency board, we're just gonna call it that for short, because I think it's Community Economic Development and Sustainability Board or something like that. I can't remember, it's a big mouthful, so we're just gonna call it Resiliency Board. They meet on April, it's actually the 4th Thursday, because the commission meeting was moved from the 23rd to the 24th. So the new advisory board meets on the 25th, but then afterwards, they meet on the 4th Wednesday. So it'll be the 4th Wednesday of every month. But just for April, it's the 25th, just due to a pushback commission meeting. And then one other.
What's the time again?
6 p.m. All advisory board meetings will start at 6 p.m. As the commission starts, I guess, their executive session at 6, and they do their discussion session at 6:30, and so on and so forth.
You said the third Wednesday?
4th Wednesday.
Fourth
Did I say third? If I said third, I mean 4th. As the record states, 4th Wednesday
22nd. Of May.
of May. That is correct. So, and then. And then one other item of note is they discussed the parks. I guess it was a main park and recreation center architectural feasibility study. And they considered moving forward with an option of expanding the recreation center. So there's just that was an additional update. We're working on some stuff. It's very preliminary right now, but there is looking to be a rather big expansion and then update to the rec center the next couple of years. A big part of that is going to be ADA, obviously. So it's what we're trying to look forward to, but there's going to be a lot of new things. I think in the presentation that was given, they mentioned solar panels on top of the new expansion, which could also piggyback on the solar panel work we're working on right now through another feasibility thing. So might be seeing solar panels on the recreation center, so which is good because it is a rather large roof and would most likely, from what the numbers we've seen, it attributes a lot of power to the savings and things like that. So, but other than that, commission business, not too sure if there's anything else as of note. Those are, I guess, like the two big ones.
My architecture firm is actually doing the feasibility study for that project. I don't know if that means it's going to translate into us actually doing the design of the physical building. But I think if there's any of that type of sustainability information that you don't feel like is getting translated or it needs to be incorporated into the project that you're not seeing, I can kind of be a liaison in that effort. I'm not on the specific team doing it, but
Yeah, absolutely.
it's kind of like
I can't remember who I am working with on that because I'm just getting some information.
Chris Brown.
It sounds familiar. So, but yeah, that's who I'll be working with. Just we're gonna pursue some grants and things like that. So, but that'll be a rather large project coming in the next couple of years, I would imagine. And then, I mean, I don't know if anyone else has stayed up to date, but the south parking garage will also be considered for reconstruction in the next, I think it's under 5 years now, because it was given a 5-year lifetime rather a couple months ago, I think late summer, early fall, so we're under that time frame. So south right here, yeah, that's the north and that's the south. But there's actually a decent, not to ramble on too much, but there's a decent opportunity there with a parking reconstruction and then possible development on top, whether that's community space, whether that's retail space, whether that's housing. So we'll see how that goes, but just as another rather large update. And I think with that, we're gonna have a pretty good sized sustainability push for that as well, just because it's a new building, and a lot of the old saying is the most sustainable building is the one that's already built. So ones that are being built, we're gonna try to aim for to implement a lot of newer things. I know with I met with Connect, Pittsburgh Regional Clean Cities, and then Duquesne Light about electrifying, they call it Electrifying Allegheny. It's a program they're doing. We're participating, actually. I'm pretty much jumping ahead, sorry, but we're meeting with them, we're meeting with them on Monday to kind of talk about specific sites in the municipality where we can introduce or maybe upgrade electric vehicle charging stations. So I think it's pretty neat that we already have two. We have one in the South Park Garage, and we have one over in the Overlook lot. We may be looking at some uptown, we may be looking at the North Garage, Rec Center, larger parking spaces. But I think it's neat, just piggybacking, this is why I'm saying it now, is piggybacking on all those rather large projects, especially the South Parking Garage. That is something that we can plan for now, and then while we're designing or anything like that with the South Parking Garage, you can say, yes, 2 EV spots on each floor, or how many spots, the demand or the needs are demanded of, so, but lots of.
Where are you looking to do that project? Like, is that gonna be something built by the municipality, or is that something that's gonna be built by like a private developer?
The South Parking Garage?
Yeah.
Not entirely sure yet. The only thing we really got about that was, or I should say, the only information we really have understood is the lifespan of the current state. We don't really have a plan on whether we would reconstruct the garage and have a developer come and construct something on top, or it would be the whole thing as a private developer. I feel like it's a little too.
I guess my follow-up question is then, like, if the whole thing ends up being built by a private developer, like, how are they held accountable for making sustainability improvements? Because if they're doing it themselves, what zoning rule or what laws or what things would force them to do that?
That is all of, I think, all in the planning process as of right now to think forward when we have these, again, Electrify Allegheny, when we get a analysis of where we can install EV charging stations. It's almost food for thought. We can say, hey, these are places that we can put them, but we can't, we obviously have public space that we can do what we want with and things like that. But if there's optimization on a private, like the Galleria, I'm not too sure if they have EV spots down there, but if there's something that we can do, where as a zoning standpoint to almost push that implementation, that's something to think about. But
I think there's language in our climate action plan that helps address things like that, which is why I think it's important to implement the climate action plan sooner than the timeline you presented last week or last month. You had said 2030 is when it's going to be implemented, and I think most of the goals that we present in that will be obsolete by 2030.
The goals were 2030.
The goals, we're joining potentially the 2030 district, whose goals are 2030, so.
Get started.
Right, correct. So I think knowing that there are big improvements like this coming down the pipeline, I think it would be important to get out in front of projects like that, knowing that there's really not going to be a ton of huge infrastructure projects in Mount Lebanon like that. That's like one of maybe 2 or 3 that we can think of. And so it would be a shame to have the cap issued and implemented after that gets built, when that's probably the biggest opportunity for energy improvements that the municipality had. So I think it's kind of using this as like a means to segue into a different topic, which is that I do think that the climate action plan needs to be implemented sooner. I think, our team worked on it under the assumption that it was a 10-year update of the 2012 version. So then to say that it's not being implemented until 2030, it basically makes the work we did obsolete, and it makes our goals that were written in there obsolete, which is incredibly frustrating because we spent hundreds of hours working on it.
And it leaves big questions, like if someone were to develop this massive project of the garage.
Yeah.
What kind of zoning things would hold them accountable? And it's great to say, well, I mean, I would think most developers would want to probably incorporate, you know, better lighting, energy efficiency, charging stations, but there's no guarantee for that, and
Yeah.
that's what we. With it, heating and cooling being a major source of greenhouse gas emissions and our focus on energy efficiency, I think you're right.
So I think with that, it just because the 2030 number was laid out from the climate resolution that the commission passed in 2022, early 2022, so that's the 2030 number that they have. I think thinking about large infrastructure projects, because the South Parking Garage, less than 5 years, and will most likely be standing for another 50 to 60 years, hopefully longer. So that's where I think, what do you want to call it? Certain situations call for action prior to the plan, because I'm not too sure of when that, again, the climate action plan will be implemented precisely. Again, they put the by 2030 number on that, but I feel like there are some steps that should be taken to make sure we meet some of those, so the goals that are laid out in that, because of larger projects like the recreation center expansion, the South Garage reconstruction, because those projects will most likely not be rehashed for a few decades, so. Yeah, I completely understand what you're
I feel
saying.
like most stuff in Mount Lebanon gets built to last for like 100 years. So yeah, it is critical to get out in front of big building projects like that.
So I think we have another week while we're still the ESB before, you know, the new boards begin April 1st. I would be interested in drafting a letter to commission to the municipal manager addressing that this was a 2022 plan, you know, that should have been updated. We understood at one point that there might be some funds for a consultant to pretty up what was already done. Remember, there was some discussion about that, and then instead the comp plan and other things kind of took precedence. But I would be fully in support of us writing a letter as the outgoing ESB members that we would like to see that timeline or pieces. I mean, there's a working draft there. There's no reason that pieces of that can't be incorporated.
I would hesitate calling it pretty enough. I think.
No, it's a full it's a full write over, no doubt.
Well, plus some additional benchmarking analysis, you know, some of which I think is already works, but.
Right. Right.
You don't wanna ask for, oh, this needs to be edited.
Right.
Get
but-
that.
But
it
I
really
think,
needs a
I think
would be the one.
part of this is, we spent 2 years working on it. We then stopped a year ago because we were told we were gonna be handing it off to a paid consultant to pretty it up. So we stopped working on it for a year. And then it suddenly comes back that our board is being disbanded and that new people are coming in to take over. And so I think what's frustrating for us that spent so long on it is that we poured a lot of time and effort. It's not just a draft. It's been through probably 10 drafts. It's well-researched. It has hundreds of our hours. It has hundreds of hours of other volunteers and other professionals and experts. Like, part of the reason Deb Smith even joined this board is because of her input into the air quality portion of the climate action plan, which then led her to get more and more involved, and then eventually she joined. So I think part of this is a conversation that we stopped because we were told to. We did the climate action plan because we were told to, and now we're watching it basically just disappear. And it's not I don't think it's just that's the case. And I also don't think it's just that those goals that we had hashed out in there, even if some of them need to be defined better, like energy benchmarking. Part of the goal was to get an energy benchmark. The goal that we established as our part of our board transition priority came from the climate action plan. We just pulled that out because you told us to pull stuff out that was higher priority. That's the start of that energy reduction section of the climate action plan. So I think that part of it is, yeah, we do need more information, but part of it is we just have to get it out there because like, how long do you have to wait for air quality monitor information before you can actually start defining what we want to have happen before you start reacting to stuff? And same with energy benchmarking, like, yeah, we'll get energy benchmarking, but there's still goals for reduction in there. There's still goals, like, we still need to work on it. And if we leave and no other champion takes up the helm or whatever the word is, like, it's just gonna die. It's not
And
gonna
that
go
leaves
anywhere.
municipality without an actionable climate action plan since 2012.
Right.
And that's, I think that would kind of be a mistake.
So I agree that it does need work to be finalized, but I think I would like our letter basically needs to say like, we need this to be taken more seriously. And it needs to be implemented sooner. And not like immediately, because it's not done, but it needs to be, like, there actually needs to be action from the municipality to help finalize it. We've taken it as far as we can take it, probably as volunteers.
And I think it could include a target for them, you know, by the end of 2024, some deadline to aim towards, because if we say soon, you know, they'll be like, oh,
And I think,
next year.
yeah, I mean, we've lost a year of potential like public outreach and feedback. That process still needs to happen, like it still needs to be shared and workshopped with the public, like. We can't just issue it, hope for the best. So I think it's not like the timeline got stopped for a year and it really needed to have continued going. We were supposed to have finished a draft that then got shared with the public by the end of 2022, I think. And that was the point when we were supposed to go public. And then it was like, oh, well, the comp plan needs to come out first. So let's just hold off on that. Oh, we'll get somebody to help package it. And then it was kind of just died. So I think we'd like to see it revived.
Of course.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much priority number one for the recommendations to the new advisory board is to implement. Well, I guess not finalize, but an interesting word to put it is implement, to implement the climate action plan. If that would be agreed upon as by the group is the number one, because we obviously worked on the, you know, the working items here, but I feel like all these tie into the climate action plan, so that could be recommendation number one is to really move that, you know. the
I
whole plan
agree, but
forward.
I don't think that's enough either, because we tried to do that.
And honestly, haven't seen the priorities of the resiliency board. I don't believe I don't believe the climate action plan will have the attention, of course, that it did in a focused board.
And even, but again, like even if it did, like we worked hard on it and we pushed for it to move forward and it didn't happen. So I think it needs more than just a push from an advisory board. I think like getting the attention of the commissioners and coming at it from another angle would be helpful.
Almost having like a commission
Yeah.
action vote that says, here's the timeline for implementing this. Rather than just a commissioner telling us when they think they'd like it to happen, because that's all that's happened so far. There's never been like an actual statement from the commission saying this is when it has to happen. Other than Andrew Flynn just kind of vaguely telling us during meetings, this is when we'd like it to be done.
Perhaps that should be our number one item on the transition plan. You know, it's great to have the different pieces of the kind of immediate priorities, but it should that one statement, you know, implementation of the climate action plan. By 2025 or whatever that moves the needle a bit. I agree, 6 years is probably too long to.
Sure, it was the resolution. I just looked at it again because I was curious. I don't see 2030. There, I see there's dates in there like certain reductions by 2050, and then there's other ones by 2025. There's one reference to 2030, but it says that Mount Lebanon strive to utilize proxy carbon pricing to account for emission projections in all municipal budgets by 2030. That's the only reference to 2030.
Well, wait a minute. Proxy carbon pricing,
This is the
so
climate
So-
resolution.
would that be social cost of carbon? And if so, what? Because there's everything from $1 to I think it's $51 right now per ton to 400. So if I think it's a vague statement like that is kind
You're
of,
looking at a climate resolution.
This is not a resolution. This is the, I mean, which is very general, like statements of promise that we're gonna take action
Yeah.
on certain things.
My guess is that, so I know that Andrew Flynn pushed that social cost of carbon concept a lot, and so I don't know if there is a set number in that resolution. But my guess is we didn't actually write that document.
Or if you want to read it.
I think I have it somewhere, thank you.
That
I was just
does need to
pointing
be
out that it's
defined, yeah. Like, what does that mean?
And I know, these sorts of things are always gonna be a little vague, but that's a lot vague. Yeah.
So anyway, I just
I-
wanted to make that point that I don't think that like the resolution is holding us to 2030.
Yeah.
It's not.
I believe it was in one of the meetings and I don't remember if it was in the plan for I remember us being reported out that these are like the municipal's plans for how they were rolling forward with, and then it would just be on a reoccurring basis. They're kind of big planning cycles. But where that came from or what that was reported out during, I do not recall.
I think I can help. I think we can all work on crafting that letter to be appropriately forceful, but not forcing on them an unfinished draft either, but kind of just asking the
To
commission
David's
to
point
take
that
a
it
look.
be adequately, vetted and prepared and finalized.
Well, and I didn't mean to be harsh about it, but I think that there was a lot of theoretical work put into it, and I guess perhaps one coming to a solution would be to just highlight where we need to make the investments. And I don't recall that meeting. So maybe that would be, that would be the way to finalize. It would be to identify what needs to be finalized.
And that, I think, has to come. Just knowing how far we got with it, I think the next step has to come from a professional that does this for a living.
Do you know, Greg, is Tim's suggestion possible? Can we go to commission with a letter that says we want you to vote to take action on this?
I feel like the way I understand advisory boards, if you're making a recommendation to the commission, it seems like the next logical step, but I want to make sure we're going about this, procedurally.
Do we need to write it right now and take a vote?
I mean, as what I think would be best, if you want to, make a vote, just so it stands as a formal recommendation. And then I can go about finding out how to do it properly. I don't know if it's addressing it through the end of the commission, or, I'm not too sure how that's done,
I
but
think we can vote on the parameters of the letter here. And then we can work on drafting it after this.
seems fine. If you just wanna make it formal, I think that's probably the best bet or best place to start.
I mean, they can always attach the draft and they can vote no. I mean, that's our recommendation, is that the climate action be, you know, the climate action plan be moved forward.
But,
She liked to move to vote.
oh yeah, I would like to move to vote to work as a team to draft a letter to help implement the climate action plan sooner than the targeted 2030 deadline.
And just a note as well that, so it wasn't attached to the 2030 number, but it states in the municipality shall undertake or cause to be undertaken a community-wide climate action plan no less frequently than once every decade. So since the climate resolution was adopted in 22, no less than a decade puts it at 2032, but that's why they put it as 2030, because then the next one would be 2030 to implement the 2020 or 2032 comp plan. So that's where that 10
But it
year.
just-
Wouldn't it be from 2012 though?
That was the last, I think
That's the gray area I'm
skipping
seeing
the
is, yeah,
2022.
is because it was adopted in 2012, or it was adopted in 2022, and the climate resolution.
That wasn't the same and it didn't come from this board. I mean, the climate resolution's great. They went ahead and moved that in the course of like a month or two without any real input.
Well, and it's
I
good
mean,
that it says that it should have a new plan should be adopted every 10 years, like that, that's a great cycle, but doesn't mean we wait on the next one.
I agree. When we looked at the climate resolution over the course of like a month or two, I don't believe any of us thought that it was in place of the climate action plan. we were working
I know, and at that, well, and at the time, we were actively
for.
finishing finishing our draft of the climate action plan. So I think the understanding was that we were pushing that to be published 2022 or 2023, and then the next one would be 2032 or 2033.
Yeah, in no way was the thought process at the time that 2022 climate resolution superseded the climate action plan that was still in progress.
Seems like it was more recent.
I-
2022. But you're all looking at the
Yeah,
actual document, just doesn't.
it might have been like end of 2022, like December.
Well, but I've read into that climate resolution because that's what kind of created my position that I'm in. So that happened before me. So when I
Yeah.
came on, it was the understanding that we're implementing these things. So yeah, but that is a little bit of gray area with the 2012, 2022 adoption, and then
Yeah, they're different and
Well, one could read the resolution as it must be done imminently to start the 10-year clock.
Could be interpreted that way.
that is a logical deduction.
Alright, well, thanks for humoring that.
No, that's.
It's been on, I know it's been on all of our minds probably since the last meeting of just like, whoa. We're leaving and climate action plan is not getting done for another, 6 years. I think that was distressing. It made it hard to leave. Like, I knew that, I was like, oh my gosh, should I stay on just to make sure this happens, but
yes, you should.
well,
I know.
Too late.
Can you give us any feedback on who's on the resiliency board?
Oh, Jen and Mike.
Oh, Jen, you're doing it.
Yay.
It was a 5 till 5 flashing sucker across my forehead. I am reluctantly, I wish it had been Tim and David as we had planned or as we had
So,
told for months.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything back at all, one way or another,
Really?
really.
You
Did- did
reapply
you
for it?
Did you
reapply?
reapply?
Yes.
When
And you were
exactly?
able to,
When you sent out the email, like, hey, by the way, like the day of.
Hmm.
But I got the email confirmation that it was received.
I have
Yeah,
had 2 weeks.
And Mike also, but
Like, yeah. I'm not entirely sure how that process was handled. That was completely out of my, I don't even know actually who they went to. I'm not too sure if it went to, you know, some certain staff member.
No response whatsoever. I actually didn't know that any decisions had been made.
Yeah, on this past Monday is when they made them official. Is when they appointed them at the past board meeting. Or the past commission meeting on Monday. Yeah, I didn't know that.
No information whatsoever got sent to
And
me.
there's another, like, I don't know when the decision was made that, as we were told for what, 6, 8 months, Tim and David would be the ones moving on their, and I think we all expected that. And when you announced the meeting times would be different,
Yeah.
and I know you had a conflict at first.
Well, yeah, I was
And
concerned
you
about
had a
class
conflict.
conflicts.
The only reason I even applied was because nobody from the ESP was continuing, I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm not.
Well, glad you're on it still. That's
Yeah,
good.
but when I found
good
out who was
continuation of-
appointed was Monday at the commission meeting, I was tuning in virtually and I saw who was appointed, so.
I'm trying to remember how we ever came to the conclusion that it would be you two continuing on, and I think
Yeah, Mindy Rainey said that.
maybe just because she's no longer a commission, like, I don't know, fold forward.
I think it had to do with timing, like, we were at the end of 3 years and normal term is 3 years, you had like
Just started
like,
my second term.
your second term, so he was like in the middle of a term. And so was David, and that's why it was like they should be allowed to finish their term.
Sure.
I can't
On the
remember.
new board, yeah.
Jen, are you on a 3-year?
No, that hasn't been communicated that I'm aware of.
Cause it was on the, I think it's on the minutes for the commission this past meeting. It lays out when your term expires, cause I think you might have been on a 3 and Mike's on a 2, cause there's 3 members that are on a 1-year, there's 3 members that are on a 2-year and 3 members on a 3-year to get them.
Oh,
cycle
the
started.
rolling cycle started.
So, not entirely sure who was where, but.
Cause
I saw is Jen, Mike, obviously, and then there is Phil Nices from the Historic Preservation Board, Grace Gartman from the Historic Preservation Board, Anna Siefkin from the Economic Development Council, John Vogel, he's also from the Economic Development Council, and then there's 2 newer people. I do not know their names. They
that we're
said them.
not on anymore.
No, they're completely new residents, and frankly, I can't remember their names off the top of my head, so. But I think there's 2 from each, actually, no, wait a minute. That would have been 6 then, so I guess there's 3. So there's. Is that right, my math right? Yeah, 2 from historic preservation, 2 from his EVC and 2 from ESP, so there's 3 newer people. I don't know who that 3rd person is, I'm gonna take a look on the minutes, see if they were posted.
Yeah, I saw the emails, but I.
Actually, yes, that's right, there's an email that was sent, I was bored with the email. There is. John Rombold. And then there is a, Lynn Lindy. Looks like. Can't remember how to pronounce this person's first name, but the last name is, Tropin. First name, I can't remember the first name, but last name's Tropin. So there's 3 people that are on the board that I think served on previous boards. So. But yes.
Well, I think we're into ESB business and the board transition plan updates. One of the things I wanted to talk about today is just what do we still need to do to finish that transition plan? Has everybody, I didn't look at it today. I know Deb sent an email saying she added to it today, I believe, or yesterday. But I wanted to just get a sense of like, are people still planning to add to it so that we can finalize it in the next 2 weeks, I guess, and then, is that right? If we finalize in the next 2 weeks and give it to you, then that's becomes the transition
In
plan?
that document, yeah,
Yeah,
in that specified one that we can, it can be a physical document, we can take it and say, this is what it is, these are the next steps. So.
yeah, and then I think we should add, the implementation of the cap to make sure that's clear, and
I
then,
think that should be the number one.
yeah. And then I just want to make sure each section was, everybody had an opportunity, I guess. So I think the only one I'm not sure about maybe is, Mike, I don't know if he added to it, I think.
He said he had notes, since he wasn't able to make it, he left, or I guess he gave me some notes that I guess he was planning to add. I'm not entirely sure, but he said. Yeah, so he said he can't edit the transition doc for some reason. I'm not the one who gives access, so I'm not too sure. Like, I saw the emails going back with you and Deb. But I'll have to send him that, or just take these edits that he sent me and just add them. But yeah, I was surprised that when they were
I
added to the
really
doc.
struggled with that document, so for some reason in there, it would not. I had to keep like. The track changes are great, but it wasn't allowing me to format it like the rest of the document, and so it was. Really weird, so I wanna go in and just make sure, I did put everything in there that was supposed to be added, I wanna make sure it's still there and not.
But his notes stated that the educational piece is an ongoing effort to get Mount Lebanon students and community members alike become involved in sustainability initiatives with the municipality. To date, here's the progress over the last year. Number one, 4 students wrote eco-friendly newsletters, which should be published on the Mount Lebanon School District's website. I would really love, all caps, if the Mount Lebo magazine ran a story on these 4 students in their newsletter. Keep in mind, they are planning to do that. Number 2, multiple students worked with Shana Bodie from Lebo Green and presented environmental concepts to the elementary school students during their lunch. He'd like to keep this up. He'd like to keep this effort going as well. Number 3, 3 students presented / were a part of a discussion panel at Megan's plastic reduction event. Number 4, 2 students / helped with Jen Ricks and Lebo Green's waste reduction event. And then finally, he's very happy to see the progress to make the bridge, to bridge the school and the community, to make Lebo a greener place to live. So those are his notes. But I will.
Is there actually? Sustainability, I mean, I know there's a tab. But I guess that's my question, is the educational website piece
I think
on municipal?
I think when we're discussing with Laura, it was be easier to kind of keep everything on that sustainability tab, because currently right now we have some recycling information, EV charging information, solar information, the coal tar ban. So we have certain things on that. She said to keep things kind of streamlined is if we were to place educational content, that would be the place to do it. If it would almost maintain, if it would maintain like a long-standing status. Whereas like the newsletters, I guess they have their way of kind of publishing those, but for example, like EV charging stations, those are stationary, that information stays up for years to come, and that's where it can be housed, but.
So on that going back to our previous conversation, on that sustainability page. Which I haven't looked at, it's quite good, but there is a climate action plan And it does link to the
2012.
2012 final report with 2010 updates and inventory.
And I do have some updates. I'll make sure that I add those. That'll be the last I say about it apparently.
And if you think, again, if you think of anything afterwards, after the fact, and I don't know what happens if IT, I guess, shuts that down or something like that. Just send it over to me and I'll add it right to it. That's probably what I'll do with Mike's. If he has anything else to edit, make sure he has access to that, but.
I'll just need to update the energy benchmarking if and when the commission decides to join the 2030 district, if that.
I'm just gonna say, I'm pretty much gonna take your memo and then forward that on to them, because that's the way we discussed it. I know Mindy, when before she ended her term as a commissioner, was okay with doing that, but there's the formal process of making that recommendation to the commission, presenting it to them for them to vote on, but prior to them voting, they'll have to obviously most likely be a discussion session item for me to kind of convey to them.
Yeah.
And if needed, it may not be super long, it may just be a memo. It may just be a memo to them and they can read it and then understand what needs to be done, or if they want to have a little bit more information discussed, I could ask one of the new.
Well,
board
I
members.
mean, it's the benchmarking process with the beauty of this is the Green Building Alliance would basically do it for you. So it's really just, once you become a member, then, the township reaches out and says, what do you need from us? They say, we need your utility information for all the buildings that you want included in this. And then you send them that information and they put it into the Energy Star portfolio and go from there.
That's
So,
pretty much exactly what I did with the solar panel feasibility study, was just take all of our utility. They actually wanted, I had to go down into the bowels of this building and find in the boiler rooms, all the panels and things like that, for how much service we have. But it's for that, I think it's a lot. It's very nice to see how packaged things can be, whereas instead of piecemealing something where you're working on an energy benchmark, everything can just be sent off to a professional and have things packaged up. Hopefully looking nice as well.
Not vote at one point to recommend that they cover the minuscule fee of joining
yeah,
that.
so that was, we voted to approve that to be brought to the commission.
And what's
And, well, I drafted a memo that listed like the $175 annual membership fee and the process for getting our buildings benchmarked using their free services.
did the commission approve that?
It's
I
going,
just sent it to him
yeah,
this week.
it's going, so there's, I think. I think on April 9th, there's a few items. I think for the second meeting in April, they should be able to vote on it, so, but we'll see. I don't set the agendas, that's primarily set by the manager. I know there's a lot of items out there. The police department actually just gave a pretty lengthy presentation on I don't want to botch the title, but it's like a community worker. It's like mental health related, social worker, so it was pretty large, but there's a lot of things that got out of the agenda, the discussion agenda, so. But we'll be sure to get on there, even though how minuscule the fee is. I think it was 175, was it?
175 a year, yeah.
So,
That sounds like a good process for, I know you'll check into it, but like to present a letter to the commission and get it on the agenda for discussion
yeah.
and to vote.
I have Tim's memo and I'm pretty much
Well,
just
I
going
mean
to,
about the cap as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, is that like same process we can follow up and try to get on an April
It's the-
agenda?
Yeah, it's the same that we did like when we issued like the substance ordinances, like the coal tar restriction ordinance and ordering the purple air monitors, all that stuff. So basically just drafted a memo to the commission saying the ESP formally recommends that you do this and they vote on it. So
But do you have to request separately to be on the agenda?
I don't think we did. I think we just gave it to you. Or at the time, Andrew Flynn or whoever was our
It's usually our
liaison.
commission liaison.
Yeah, whoever was the liaison.
So the agendas are set by the manager, and he works with the commission, obviously, to kind of schedule those out, but.
I would think the advisory boards might. You have things to put forward, I mean, how does Keith know that? The advisory
We
board
don't have a
has,
commission member and.
That's, I
Yeah.
update, well, usually when the commissioner's not here, I know Mindy updated Keith on a lot of things, but since. I think that's pretty much all of this year, I'm just updating Keith on things that are going through, but. It's also trying to stay in tune with. Keeping Eric Milliron updated on items as well, because he'll be co-liaisoning the new board, or I guess he's. Primary, I'm secondary, so it's he has a lot of institutional knowledge and then also just experience in not just commercial districts, but I know he's on Tree Pittsburgh's board. I think his degree is in planning and sustainability, so there's a lot of knowledge that I can piggyback off of Eric, so, but I'm excited to do that. But yeah, I will get with Keith to see what the process will be to make that formal recommendation to get not only the Green Building Alliance thing moving forward, the item there, but also the which is to keep, there's too many plans to start with C, you have the capital improvement, you have the climate action plan, the comprehensive plan. So, yeah, the climate action plan moving that forward.
Well, so I know Deb made updates, I had. Some information in there for plastic, Jen, you're gonna check your updates on recycling. Sure, I'll be there, yeah. Greg, you have Mike's updates, and then David's gonna make some, and you're going to make updates if the 2030. Decision is made, so I think we've got. All the sections covered. So I don't know if anybody has any like updates specifically on their topics, otherwise. I think we just like that should be the focus, is just making sure we've got everything in that transition
Just
plan.
tying up any of the loose ends that are on that document, but.
Yeah. And I mean, just an idea, Jen, since you're carrying forward, you know, if the decision is yes, let's implement this, and you need a like working group to assist the
I know where to find you.
the resiliency board, I'd be happy to still spend time on the side, you know, and contributing efforts towards making sure that gets done.
And again, I just wanted to put this out there again, like mentioning those times, the meeting times, like. Still allowed to come
Yeah,
and
and
participate, because I think. I don't know how the new board will be with the first couple months, just kind of familiarizing themselves with how things work, because again, there are new board members that aren't familiar with how advisory boards work, but I feel like having that. The refresh in the institutional knowledge, but the previous knowledge of how projects went, just having someone to refer to, where it's not just relying solely on Jen or not just relying solely on Mike. So again,
I know, yeah.
and that's why you're still welcome, you know, you can.
Yeah, and I certainly would do that. I'm just thinking, as you guys all know, not a lot gets done in meetings. We talk about a lot of things and we make plans, but we don't actually like do it. And if work needs to be done to make it, like, I'm hoping it gets handed to a consultant. The decision is that it's not, and it needs to be finished, then I want to make sure it's finished. So I think that's it on the ESB business section. Standing items, just as discussion. I don't think there's anything there.
Nothing really there.
And then new business is the sustainability series, which, unless anybody else has an update, all I know is that the next like event is Earth Day. And then there's plans to do another like educational session after that. I think, David, you're working on.
Yeah, I was. And I'm happy to be a kind of scientific presenter, but perhaps there should be someone on board who's kind of
Yeah, you
the
know,
coordination of these.
that's a good point. I don't
For the
know.
sustainability
Like
series?
sustainability series.
Yeah, so.
The
I
idea
think
was to
it's
carry that through the whole
May.
year, as a partnership of ESB and Levo Green, and certainly Levo Green, I think will continue.
I was
to
gonna say,
support
I
that,
think
but
Levo Green is very much still, in fact, they're meeting tonight.
yeah,
Yeah, May 21st was the tentative date for that.
but I mean, I think it's great if the resiliency board stays involved in that too. But I don't know that that's specifically listed in the transition plan. Do we think it's worth putting it in there? Or there's enough other things to focus on that we should just leave it green? Go with it. Any thoughts?
I mean, I think these are priority, I think there's a lot of stuff that. Like, I don't know if it has to go in like the transition document, but it could go, like, when you and Mike. Have like the first meeting, you make recommendations of things that like were ongoing before the board got disbanded. That might be worth carrying on and just see if they have the interest in it. I don't think you can force them to do it if they're not willing to do it, but.
But also is, do we know if Levo Green is planning to talk to their resiliency board?
What?
I mean, will Levo Green talk to the resiliency board or? I think it all need to be in. Just one.
I think if we want something to move forward, we should put it in the transition plan.
Could we change education website content, just education content and include it in that?
Yes.
line item?
And support partnership, you know, and I would. I would clarify support monthly sustainability sort of series. Partnership in partnership with Eco Green.
Cause I know Mike is giving his presentation. On the next one with the Historic Preservation Board is the sustainable, they're doing their sustainable house, like historical sustainability series, so he's giving his presentation. On just like what he talked about months ago, what he does at his house with like, you know, like I can't remember what they're called, like. Toilet, the thing, the bottles you put in your toilet to reduce the water, things like that, so he's, yeah, displacement, and then I guess it's like homeowner hacks pretty much, so. Can't remember what.
That's not through the Limo Green.
No, but I'm just saying, like, he's giving his like educational content. Seminar, whatever you wanna call it, but yeah, Tim, I feel like that's a good thing to move forward, just calling it educational content rather than just the website, because, you know. There's more than just the website. So.
That's all that we have on the agenda. Anything else?
Nope, but it's been a good 4 years. Seen a lot done in that time period.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen, for. We shall see.
Good fight. It's, I mean, I feel like it's always slow moving. It's, I mean, when I first joined, we didn't have a commissioner then either. It was Bonnie Cross, who was just our liaison, and she took meeting minutes and she would share them with the commissioners, and we would just talk like very hypothetically about stuff because we didn't know what we were supposed to be doing. And I think like some things got started, like Claire Kist and I, or no, not Claire Kist, Heather Wechter and I went to a commission meeting, like where they were voting on the budget, and very briefly and simply presented a plan, like a rough cost, rough kilowatt like amount, and said, hey, you're replacing the roof on the library. We think it would be worthwhile to consider doing solar panels in this, like in this particular instance. And I gave like a brief feasibility study explanation of it, and within like 2 or 3 years, within a month, they voted, yes, they were gonna put solar panels in the library.
See, I feel like that's almost giving me a forethought now for like, we kept talking about the parking garage.
Yeah.
The parking garage is gonna be redone, the resiliency board may, because again, it is an economic development aspect too. So the resiliency board may sit there and say, hey, we're recommending that you implement something prior to the redevelopment of this to make sure it follows the rules. So what you just said right there is like, happen again.
That was like a one-off thing, like we just kind of every year would review the budget, find ways, like. Find instant, like, hey, there's a parking lot renovation, let's do stormwater management, like, hey, there's a field renovation, let's make sure they're using like. No light trespass LEDs and
Yep.
stuff like, so we kind of just were doing like very one-off stuff until. Andrew Flynn came in and said, let's actually formulate this into like a formal plan. That's gonna guide rules and regulations and laws so that you're not just all sitting here doing one-off projects like that. And that was where that came out of. And then that was like 2020 to 2022. That was the big push. With intermittent, like things like that, as we developed the air quality, we figured out we needed purple air monitors. So we said we need them now because we don't know anything. So we got that implemented even before the cap came out, but.
I think like you mentioned as well with the budget, like in our capital improvement project or capital improvement program, like we have. Items, if you ever go through it, like we have items for the comp plan, the Parks and Rec plan, and the, what we're referencing right now is the 2020. 2021 or 2022 Connect Regional Climate Action Plan, so that's what they're referencing right now. And that was, so certain projects. It follows that, I guess, direction of those plans. So there are some in there. I know there was the lights that we're, I guess, planning. I don't know the status of that project, but the lights that we're redoing down at like the turf fields, those will fall under Parks Master Plan, and then also the Connect Regional Action Plan is by utilizing, low energy consumption bulbs and things like that. But yeah, that's we try to strive to that, is to make sure we can follow the certain plans, not just have plans, say, what are we doing with them? Making sure that active projects that we're going after are referencing those plans and following the recommendations of the plan, so.
Because frankly, the 2012 is still outdated, like, I mean, it is.
That was back when LEED was cool.
Yeah, and
I'm thinking, just as a kind of talking myself through it. Since the reference of the I think it's the 2022 Connect Regional Action or Regional Climate Action Plan is referenced, and that's, we've kind of fallen under because we participated in that. This is all prior to before I got here, that is what I think the commission may be going off of with their climate resolution, was that Connect Regional Climate Action Plan.
interacted with their
Exactly.
folks quite a bit. They kind of have a pretty decent menu of policies and advice that they, so you're not, every municipality, I think there are like 96 of them in Allegheny County or something, aren't recreating the wheel. We utilize the Connect Climate Action Plan to refer to, or other communities quite a bit when we build the Climate Action Plan, but yeah, aircraft had a lot to do with that.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Your commissioners. Your boards.